You're watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei. The program is coming to you Monday to Friday on CGTN. The rise of unilateralism and protectionism in recent years has resulted in geopolitical conflicts like the ongoing trade war between China and the United States. In theory, trade globalization can benefit all nations on Earth, and evidence from the past also supported this view. But why does deglobalization appear to be gaining momentum, at least in some corners of the world? What is wrong then, and how can the world economy get back on track?
Escalating trade tensions. After a glimmer of hope appeared in de-escalating the U.S.-China trade conflict, U.S. President Donald Trump once again brought out heavy ordinance, imposing 10% tariffs later this month on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods. Those will eventually go up to 25% at the end of the year. China has announced that it will impose tariffs on $60 billion worth of American products. The taxes, ranging from 5 to 10%, will cover thousands of products and go into effect Monday. China's foreign ministry insists negotiations are the only way to solve these trade issues.
China reiterates that carrying out dialogue and negotiations based on equality, good faith, and mutual respect is the only right way to solve the China-U.S. economic and trade issues. However, what the U.S. is doing now does not show sincerity or goodwill.
And China's Commerce Ministry is also demanding Washington change its policies, saying the new tariffs will only hurt trade talks. The trade frictions are never just a China-U.S. issue. It concerns all who participate in the global trading system. Professor Justin Lin, as former World Bank Chief Economist and Director of the Center for New Structural Economies at Peking University, shared with us his insights on China-U.S. trade ties.
Professor Lin, welcome to CGTN.
Good morning, Wei.
One of the things people are asking is about the global supply chain. Where is China going to be as a result of this apparent trade war between China and the United States on the global supply chain?
Well, certainly I hope trade war will be over soon, because trade is always a win-win for every country. The trade world currently, what we observe, will affect the kind of process. And especially China is a major producer of manufacturing goods in the world, so China get a nickname of the world factory. And this kind of modern manufacturing rely on supply chain. So if this trade war prolongs, certainly it will hurt a little bit. But China is a large country, so the impact will be there, but I think it will be absorbable.
I know, Professor Lin, you are a believer of globalization, but when you are saying you hope the trade war would end soon, is there any evidence that could help us to understand that the trend is really going there or the other way around?
And I think, as we said, we hope for the best, but we prepare for the worst.
How is China prepared for the worst?
Well, certainly China has a lot of domestic, demand, and we can rely on domestic demand to absorb some of this, diversion. And China also trade with European countries, Africa, South Asia, Central Asia, East Asia. And so, the world is only between China and the U.S., but we have so many friends in the world. And we can, work together to arrange, globalization, even without the participation of the U.S.
The trade war, when it comes to the amount or the quantity, is one thing. But the most important thing is what's going to be the nature of relationship between China and the United States, the two largest economies in the world, and therefore, what does it mean for the world economy as a whole? Meanwhile, it is also about confidence. The confidence, believing in globalization, the confidence about the global economy in the future.
Yeah.
About that part, is there any evidence, Professor Lin, helping us to understand where things are going?
I think that because we need to see the foundation of relation. The foundation of relation is that will this relation help each other, improve the living of the people in both countries, and fulfill the dream of the people in both countries. And I strongly believe, yes, that's the foundation. Our productions, our industries are in the low, medium, value-added sectors.
Yes.
And the U.S. is on the high value and added sectors. And so our economy comes to complementarity. That means we, in a trade, we export, low prices, living necessity, consumption good to help the consumers. Trade is still a win-win because in the mechanism of trade, when countries are on a different income level, they're based on the different competitive advantages. China has competitive advantage in more labor-intensive sectors, and the U.S. has competitive advantage on higher value-added capital-intensive sectors. But when our income reaches the same level, then trade will rely on specialization. So trade will always be good for everyone, and that is the reason why globalization has been a trend in the world, and that allows that every country to have an opportunity to improve the efficiency of their economy and update the different standard of their people.
We understand there are certain concerns, let's just say in Washington, about this, what they consider as the so-called imbalance, not just imbalance of trade, but rather imbalance of the overall relationship, literally meaning in a way that China should never be able to whether challenge or be in an equal amount when it comes to economic power with the United States, not to mention surpass the United States. I understand, Professor Lin, China said it very clear, we're not here to compete against anyone. But the question is, when China is developing and we see discomfort in some other places as a result of purely China's development, what can China do, really?
If China grows, China's market will be larger, and China also provide opportunity for other countries to share this kind of prosperity, because we are in a globalized world. Certainly, with the rising of China's economy, we will export more. We will upgrade our export to higher value added. That is the foundation for us to have high income. But at the same time, we will also open the space for low-income countries either to kickstart their industrialization process so they can transform from a low-income agrarian economy to a dynamic growing industrialized economy. China will also create a space of demand for natural resources, and we know quite a number developing countries or even high-income countries like Australia, Canada, they are resources abundant countries.
Right.
And China will provide a market for them. And for U.S. or some European countries like Germany and so on, when China grows, China demand for high value-added, sophisticated manufacturing good will also increase. China's demand for luxury consumption good will be increased. So from what I see, the rise of China or the growth of China, certainly first, it's a legitimate right for Chinese people. Certainly, it's also a legitimate right for the people in every country. And in a globalized world, this kind of dynamic growth in one country not only help the country itself, but will also help the other country to have larger markets and to grow together. So I think we should, that people understand, it's our common interest. And so, we can join hands to share this prosperity together.
Robert Zoellick, who you used to work with when you were serving for the World Bank, was suggesting that we should look beyond the current administration in Washington and look at the real nature of the economies between the two countries and the nature of relationship between the two countries. Professor Lin, how can we look beyond when you have quite an obstacle right here? What kind of vision does it take for Chinese economic policymakers and academics such as you, which is leading the thoughts about China's development here in this country?
I think that's a very good point. We should not overreact to Trump administrations,
the
right, daily issues, because the relation should be long term, and fundamentally, we should do what we need to do to further reforming our economy, to improve our system, and so when we become higher income country, we all have a good foundation, good institution for operation of a system to meet the aspiration of the people.
Yes.
I think that's a fundamental thing. No matter what kind of situation happen outside China, we should not slow down what we need to do.
When it comes to China, the biggest challenge is not coming from outside China, but rather how China upgrades itself.
Right.
So that comes to the reform and opening up issue.
Yeah.
Professor Lin, you've been instrumental in pushing forward China's reform and interaction with the rest of the world. But Professor Lin, there have been complaints about China not necessarily acting fast, not necessarily acting according to its promises over the years, particularly when it comes to the opening part. What do you say, Professor?
I think that we need to.
What can be done?
We should not, judge the reform programs according to some kind of blueprint based on textbook, right? Because certainly China adopted a gradual piecemeal approach for the transition. And in the 1980s, 1990s, the idea of transition from a planned economy to a market economy is to adopt some kind of comprehensive structural therapy to remove all the distortions simultaneously. And at that time, there seemed to be a consensus among the policy and academic circles in the world. And at that time, the ideas that to have a piecemeal gradual approach was the worst possible approach. But let's see the evidence. Countries adopt those kind of comprehensive structural therapy, try to do privatization, marketization, stabilization simultaneously. On the paper, they seem to introduce the perfect institution, perfect system.
Yes.
But their economy collapsed, stagnant, hit by crisis all the time. And their economic performance measured by the average annual growth rate, it was lower than pre-transition. If you measure by the frequencies of crises, again, it was higher than the pre-transition.
Yes.
And so those kind of so-called improved institution simultaneously to reach the higher level, it did not contribute to the well-being of the people. And China adopted this kind of gradual piecemeal approach. On the one hand, continue to provide some transitory protection and subsidy to the older capital-intensive sector, which went against China's comparative advantages. Like that, China maintains stability. But on the other hand, also liberalize the entry to the new labor-intensive sectors, which China had comparative advantages. And government facilitated that by improving infrastructure-based environment in the special economic zone, export processing zone. So quickly turn those kind of comparative advantage to competitive advantage.
That's right.
So China can grow so fast. And not only so, the dynamic growth in the new sectors also create a condition to reform the older sectors. Because the reason why the older sector require protection and subsidies was because they went against China's comparative advantage. At that time, China was a low-income country, capital was scarce, but they were in a very capital-intensive sectors.
That's right.
And they are not viable in an open competitive market. But after 40 years of reform, China now is a high middle-income country. Capital is not scarce anymore, and sectors which used to be against China's comparative advantage now become China's comparative advantages.
But then that means we could do it faster,
Well,
Professor?
that has to see, because if we can do faster, certainly it will be desirable. But stability is always the foundation.
One of the things people are concerned these days is what's going to happen to the international system.
Yeah.
You yourself worked in the World Bank for consecutive years. When the developed economy, particularly the United States, under the current administration, expressing so much suspicions and even intention to withdraw from some of the international institutions, what can China, as the biggest developing country in the emerging economy, together with the others, do about the current reality? Can China and some of the others figure out some kinds of solutions in order to make sure that people still have confidence in the international system and confidence in our global economy, Professor?
Well, I think that's a very important issue. As I say, globalization is a win-win for everyone. And after the Second World War, the international architectures, has paved the foundation for globalization. And I think the challenge is not globalization is not good. The challenge is that China, benefit from this globalization. China grow very fast, and now the weight in the global economy shift. And but if we turn away from globalization, other developing countries, they will lose the opportunity to have a dynamic economic growth as China. And so I think the globalization and the international architecture after the Second World War provide a possibility for that.
Yeah.
And especially, with now China become a newcomer in global development community, provide assistance to other developing countries in order to enable them to capture the opportunity of globalization. I think the globalization is a platform for every country to develop their economy according to their competitive advantages, and by that they can be efficient. At the same time, it also provides an opportunity for countries to transform from poor agrarian economy to modern industrialized economy, and climb the industrial ladder to move from low income, middle income to high income. And in this process, for a low income country, two things are crucial. One is to capture the window of opportunity of global relocation of labor intensive manufacturing.
Yes.
And the second one is to create enabling condition for country to capture that opportunities. And in this entering to this new era, China will become a high-income country. China will lose comparative advantages in traditional labor-intensive sectors, and those kind of sectors will be on the process to be relocated to other countries. And because China is a large country,
right.
China has 85 million job opportunity in those kind of sectors. And that 85 million will be almost possible to make all the low-income countries to kickstart their industrialization simultaneously. But the main constraint is infrastructure. Because if you want to have your goods to reach global markets, you need to have power, you need to have road, you need to have port facility. And China's Belt and Road Initiative will contribute to the infrastructure connectivities. So I think that the developing countries should work together to capture this opportunity. And if the developing country can grow faster, they will become the larger market for high-income country.
Right.
And that will enable high-income country to continue to maintain higher growth and achieve further prosperity.
Even if that means more disputes at the WTO, even the deadlock at the WTO, even that means World Bank, IMF express concerns or suspicions about China's goals when it comes to future development through the globalization. China is still going to stick to its version of globalization. Is that what you're saying?
Certainly, yeah.
As simple as that?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor Lin, for being with us. Really appreciate it.